Hope everybody had a great Monday. Welcome to HBRV Lifestyle, the podcast. I'm the host, the Honey Badger, here to give it to you straight and transparent about the RV business, as well as other things. Today we have a very interesting episode, a deep dive look into possibilities for 2025. I do have a cough drop in my mouth because I'm going to try not to cough or sniffle too much during this episode. But this is going to be a peek into what could happen in 2025. So kind of like Marvel's What If, it's the RV industry's what if. But before I get into it, I do want to send out my condolences and my prayers out to the folks in Wisconsin. If you guys don't know, there was a shooting in Wisconsin at a school that resulted in the loss of life. And my heart goes out to those parents. Good morning, Skylar. My heart goes out to everybody in that community. It's not right. I mean, what we go through on a daily basis, the struggle of life, the struggle of where we are, how we're getting there, it doesn't need to be intensified by things like this. So they actually did name the shooter, and I was going to pull it up real quick so I don't do anything, like don't say anything out of turn, because it's a very sensitive thing. Apparently the person who was the gunman was Natalie Rumpnow, and we're still getting more information as that comes along. But I just want to really send it out there. The other thing I want to talk about is real quick is Monday Night Football. Real quick, I'm getting a lot of hey, since you're talking about other things too beyond the RV industry, would you talk about NFL football at all? And I'm going to say probably I'll never talk about NFL football unless it's just a Super Bowl. I'm not an NFL football guy. I'm a college football guy. In fact, I'm going to have one of these weeks, a segment every week is going to be on college football, or at least one episode will be dedicated to college football, because the RV industry and the RV news pretty much can be wrapped up in a 3-day show. So I want to fill the other 2 days with other stuff. Okay. The other thing that I really want to put into perspective is 2024 has been a really rough year for the world. You still have a Ukraine-Russia war. You still have wars in the Middle East. You have hyperinflation still throughout the entire world. You have such a big political divide on a world stage, not just in the United States, but also on the world stage as well. You have, good morning, Nathan. You have so many people that are still throwing, or I guess you guys would call it gaslighting people on the internet, even though the election's gone, even though the election's done. You have a lot of people that are recognizing that the creator economy, the influencer economy, is going downhill, not uphill. And I talked about it in the RV industry, but if you want to talk about it on a global influencer basis, you're starting to see where TikTok, hi Joy, TikTok is going away. And it sucks because that's the platform that I grew the biggest on this year. I went from 5,400 subscribers in February of this year on TikTok to 56,000. Over the entire year period, I got over 15 million views. And that's after I started posting the podcast episodes, full walkthrough videos, full finance videos. We're not talking about like 1 minute, 2 minute videos. We're talking about 10 to 30 minute videos I was putting on TikTok, and I was getting between 800 to 900,000 views a month, and then cracked 2 million in November. Good morning, Rosalind. TikTok is the last haven for a creator to grow and find an audience. YouTube has become such a machine when it comes to ad revenue that they've gotten more into the mainstream. Now they got the NFL. Top creators get front billing on the front page of the home page. It's become a haven that if you're not controversial or you're not super happy in the world's sunshine and rainbows, you don't have a place on YouTube unless you pay for it. So that drives me and takes me to what my predictions are going to be and the what if. Okay? And the what if is this. Okay? What if one of the independent RV companies was forced to sell in 2025? Not that they chose to sell it. Totally different. What if they were forced to sell it? What if Brinkley RV, what if Alliance RV was forced to sell because private equity loans, private equity firms are like, we're out. We're out. Okay. By the way, Joy, I'm on Rumble too now. But anyway, the reality is that it is a possibility that Brinkley could be forced to sell. Alliance RV could be forced to sell. Genesis Supreme RV, Outdoors RV, Nexus RV. These are companies that could be forced to sell by their investors or backers or any of the loan companies if any of their loans have come mature. So what would that look like? Let's use Brinkley as an example. Who would buy Brinkley at that point? If you could buy Brinkley for a lot less than market value because loans are maturing, the private equity firm wants their cash back because a recession's coming. Maybe, let's use Alliance RV in this respect. Let's say Alliance RV got a 4-year loan or a 4-year investment group interest-only loan through an investor, and now that loan has come mature, and now they got to pay it in full, and they don't have the cash to pay it in full. Now you got to sell assets. Now you got to sell the company. So who would be able to have the ability to buy Alliance and buy Brinkley or either or and keep it going where the customer service is still treated like an independent company? And my opinion and my answer would be Rev Group. Rev Group is the only manufacturing company conglomerate that seems to have gone through the dark age and come out better. And what I'm referring to is Rev Group bought Lance Travel Trailers, Lance Campers. They bought the whole company. During COVID, they were severely accused of cheapening the product, not building it the way it was built over the last 25, 30 years, and jacking up the price. That's what they were accused of, okay? They were accused by their own employees. They were accused by consumers. They were accused by dealers. They were accused by other manufacturers. Fair enough. Rev Group learned how quickly even a brand name like Lance Trailers can get gobbled up and thrown in the dumpster, and nobody gives a crap. I mean, look what's happening to Grand Design RV with all the frame failure, frame flex. They are severely down due to economic pressures and all the negative press that they have on the internet that they haven't addressed yet. At least haven't addressed properly yet. Rev Group has learned its lesson and went back to its original way of doing things. So for year model 2023 and 2024, they went back to what sold Lance as a high quality travel trailer. They went back to its bread and butter. So Rev Group has already been through a point in time where they lost so much market share and they learned their lesson that they're the only RV company that I would trust at this point with Brinkley or with Alliance RV. That's not to throw shade at Forest River or Thor Industries in a way, or even Winnebago in a way. Winnebago has already taught us that they can't handle the towable part of the RV industry. They've already proven it. They've proven that they struggled with their own brand, and now they've pretty much have put Grand Design RV on the brink of extinction because of the treatment that they have done across basically the spectrum of their own customer base. You're never going to make everybody happy, but Winnebago's already proven that if you give them a successful brand, they're not going to do right by it. Thor is struggling with Tiffin. Thor normally doesn't struggle. Thor normally struggles with its own brands. Okay, Thor Motor Coach, etc. Back in the day, Thor Towables. But Thor, for the most part, like Keystone, even though it's under the Thor umbrella, it's run by its own president. And they don't screw with Jeff. Okay? Jeff has run it for what now, 7-8 years. They're not going to screw with him. You look at back in the day, not currently, but back in the day when Heartland was still being run by a couple people that were with the company when it sold, it still kept going. But for whatever reason, Thor has struggled to bring Tiffin or keep Tiffin at the level it needed to be at. So if they're struggling with such a great brand name that Bob Tiffin built, how can we trust them with Brinkley or Alliance, right? Forest River is in kind of a disarray. You just lost Pete Legal. We just lost him. You lost him in not that long of a time from the time he transferred basically power. You still got Doug Getter getting kind of into his seat as CEO and president of Forest River RV. You still have the dump trailer, the boat industry part of it. They're going to be separated. They're going to have their own presidents and CEOs that Pete appointed and put in place. But you're still kind of in the middle of a transition. So when you're talking about the transition of a brand name, you don't want it to be with a company that's already in transition. Okay. Plus, we don't even know what the future of Forest River RV is going to be. Okay. We don't know what that looks like. We'll get more of an idea of what that looks like probably by summer. You got to give these guys their new things. I'm going to get more into Forest River a little bit later, because if Doug Getter's watching this, I have one piece of advice for him. It's a good one too, and I'll get to that in a little bit. So realistically, the only company out of the big four would be Rev Group. Okay. The other thing I could see happening is, let's say it's Genesis Supreme RV. Let's say Pablo has to sell. Let's say he's the one that's forced to sell the company. If that's the case, I would rather see guys like the mid-majors that are teetering on whether they should be dealers or going to something else. There's a lot of guys across the United States that are still on the fence of whether they should sell their dealerships or not. Part of them's like, nah, I don't want to do it, because then I'm going to end up helping create this monopoly. And then the other part of them's like, yeah, but I'd really want to get into something else. What I don't want to happen is, I don't want it to happen where it falls into the hands, specifically Brinkley. Look, I don't hate Brinkley. I just think it's overpriced for what it really is. It's not that great of a coach, but it's not bad either. Okay? It's just overpriced for what it really is. But what I don't want to see is, I don't want to see Brinkley RV in the hands of a foreign company. I don't want to see Alliance RV in the hands of a foreign company. Somebody who doesn't understand. We already see what that looks like. Black Series. Black Series was Chinese owned, and it went dead in 6 years. So a lot of you tell me, oh, well, frames and Lippert and frames and this and this. Look, I'm going to tell you guys something you probably don't want to hear. Probably between 95 and 96%, probably within that range, of people I speak with that are owners of an RV are extremely happy with their RV. Only between 4 and 5% of you are having beyond Armageddon problems with your motorhome, with your toy hauler, with your RV, with your travel trailer, with your fifth wheel. Now, 4 to 5% is still a big number, but it's less than the auto industry. Way less than the auto industry. And the auto industry, most cars are built by machines. So when you think about who do you trust to continue a brand like Outdoors RV, like Nexus RV, like Brinkley RV, all the independents, I'd say the only real company out of that's going to be Rev Group. Okay. Now, as far as my advice to Mr. Getter, my advice to you, sir, is so cool, so amazing. Most of you guys that watch this podcast won't even know who this person is. But Mr. Getter, if I were in your shoes, especially with the passing of Pete being so kind of sudden, and I know more than likely you and his family and a bunch of people around were hoping we could get a few more years out of the old man. Me personally, I wish I could have had at least another dozen conversations with him, because he was so full of knowledge. Go get Don Gundon out of Montana. bring his rear end out of retirement. Put him as your personal consultant over there at Forest River. I think it will help and benefit the Forest River umbrella better than anybody. Because now I don't know if you can get him off the big Blackfoot with his fly rod and trout bundle in his by his pouch. I don't think you could get him out of that. But I sure in hell would try if I were in your shoes. You know, to me, Don Gundin was the most brilliant mind we had in the RV industry. Don had, and you guys don't know him, but give you a little background, Don built some of the biggest brands that Forest River has. And he built them because he saw, watch this, he saw, when he made a decision, when I remember talking to Don 6-7 years ago. Don told me once, this is like a while back, it was like 2017, 2018. When he made a decision, when he pulled a lever, he looked at how that decision was going to affect the brand, the company, the consumer, and the dealer base in 10 years. Nobody does that anymore. Nobody. No, everybody's so focused, and this is worldwide. This is every industry. This isn't just RVs. This is every industry. This is every aspect of life. People are worried about tomorrow more than they are worried about 10 years from now. And that's why every brand that Don Gundin has been a part of has made it through every recession, and his dealers make it through. The dealers that he puts the product on the lot of used to make it through hard times too. The majority of them. Just a brilliant man. He saw that he didn't want to just make money today. He wanted to make money with the same brand, the same trailer. See, that's the difference. Sorry to get off track, but that's the difference between someone who is going to stay in business for 20 or 30 years and someone that's going to go out of business in 5. Guys like Don Gundin saw you, the consumer, and when you bought let's use a Rockwood travel trailer. You bought a Geo Pro. You bought a little 16-foot travel trailer. That was your starter coach. Don wanted you to have such a great experience that the first thing you shop for when you upgrade is another Rockwood or Flagstaff travel trailer. He cared that he wanted to make the progression, okay, of your RV experience to be able to be with one brand if you were, I wouldn't say a loyalist, but we'll say a fan. And that's all you'd shop. I mean, you'd shop other brands just for the hell of it, but you would always come back to, okay, I bought the 16-footer. Now I want to go to 28 feet. Oh, wow. Look what Rockwood has at 28 feet. It was a natural progression. And when he made decisions on things, warranty, things of that nature, how to make the product better, it was overall an experience to keep the Rockwood Flagstaff brand alive, at the same time give it growth and make it in the top 3, top 5 sold travel trailers across the United States and Canada every single year. And if you look at the stat survey, they're always in the top 5, top 6 every single year. We need more of that in the world. I've got a tripod for free from one of the sponsors of the channel, the main channel. It fell apart in 2 hours. Sells for $20. Gone in 2 hours. they're going to ship me another one, but it's like, I told them, hey, I just can't do a video. I mean, it fell apart in 2 hours. It didn't even last. I've just seen so much of that in different aspects of our lives. I watched a buddy of mine who bought a BMW. He called me yesterday. The engine blew at 16,000 miles. They don't build cars. They don't build boats. They don't build things at high quality like people expect. The expectations of products are that we're going to spend a cheap amount of money and we should get a really good product for that. Now, I'm not talking about the frame failure thing. I'm talking about products in general. Like, for example, this cell phone. This is the Samsung. This is the second phone, okay? This phone was cheap. The camera's good. The microphone's good. But at the end of the day, this Samsung phone does not have the storage capacity for video and photos like my iPhone does, the one that I'm doing this live stream on. I can't expect to pay Samsung pricing for this phone and get the quality of storage and the quality of things that I get on my iPhone. You can't expect to go spend $15,000 on a car, a travel trailer, a boat, and get $200,000 quality. Okay. But it's also the same thing about salespeople. And it's not just the salespeople at a dealership. It's private party sellers. It's the manufacturing salesman. It's the parts salesman that sells it to the manufacturer. There's always a saying that you overpromise and underdeliver, you're going to have a crap product. You underpromise and you overdeliver, you have a customer for life. Okay? The only thing that I would say that is built quality-wise with very little effort and cheap effort is our bodies. We can exercise for absolutely free. We can eat good food for cheap. We can stop drinking alcohol and smoking things that are bad for our health, and our bodies will always be a temple. But even then, that takes maintenance. Because if you don't maintain your knees, they go bad. You don't maintain your back, it goes bad. You don't maintain your brain, it goes bad. Maintenance is a part of life with anything and everything that we deal with. Fact of life. You buy a $15,995 travel trailer, there's a lot more maintenance to keeping that thing good than it is to buy a tent for $200. But that doesn't mean the tent doesn't have maintenance. Less maintenance. It doesn't mean that you buy a motorhome and never do the oil change. Well, I don't need to do that. It's a low mileage vehicle. I'm going to give you guys a story that I heard on Saturday. I was sitting around, drinking a cup of coffee, getting ready to do Uber. I was doing some marketing stuff for the podcast and the main channel. And I overheard these guys, they were talking about this 2005 Winnebago motorhome that one of the guys bought for like 10 grand. And he just kept bragging and bragging how that coach sold for $180,000 brand new and he got it for 10 grand. I'm like, I know how much that Chieftain sold for. It sold for about $35,000 brand new. But okay. The other thing that was interesting out of that conversation was one of the guys says, yeah, they just don't build them like they used to. Go do your thing, Joy. Well, if they didn't build them how they used to, and it really was better quality in 1994 or 1995, then why didn't they keep building it like that? Now, most of you will say greed. They just want to make a cheaper product and sell it for a higher price. So they've been building the construction of the sidewalls, the construction of the floors, the construction of the roofs, the wiring from the 1990s, the appliances from the 1990s are better quality than today. The tires were better in 1990s. The wheels were better. The brakes were better in the 1990s and early 2000s than they are today. Let's just repeat that self to you. Okay? See, my mom has a 1962 Continental travel trailer. And there's a 1974 travel trailer that's on her. Okay. So just think about that comment for a second. Things back in the day were better quality than they are today. They're built with better material. They were built with a better process. The wiring was way better back in 1995. The appliances were way better in 2002. That's like saying our computers were better in the 1980s and 90s. That's like saying flip phones are better than an iPhone or a smartphone. That's like saying that hybrid engine motors are less fuel efficient than a big muscle car built in the 1980s and 90s. So when people make comments like that, I know what they're referring to. They're referring that people took more care in building stuff. The people, the human element to the manufacturing was different. That I could agree with. The human element has changed because now you have a lot of robots that build cars. You have a lot of AI technology that builds out a lot of our programs. I totally 100% get it. But the materials used today are better quality overall than they were 20, 25 years ago. I've sold personally a lot of older used travel trailers, fifth wheels, motorhomes. And realistically, the only high quality unit that I could tell you that is better than today is stuff built by Beaver. Beaver is, I would still take an 04 to 06 Beaver Marquee over most of the diesel pushers that are sold today. Beaver built one hell of a motorhome, but they were 600 grand for the really good ones. They sold from anywhere from $380,000 to $650,000, depending on how you ordered it from the factory. That's the equivalent today of about $1.1 million, $1.2 million with inflation. So yeah, but that's a different dollar amount. That's a different world. Does that mean that every Beaver marquee ever built never had a problem? Hell, I've had some of them that have the aquahot system is burned out. I've seen a bunch of Beavers that have a bunch of water damage. It's not just the quality of the build, it's how you take care of your unit. It's how you take care of anything. Your cars, your boats, your RVs, your appliances at home, your roof at home. When you don't maintain and take care of stuff, shit falls apart. Fact of life. Okay, now, the real fun begins. I want to cover this real quick. Okay, this was from rvbusiness.com. It says this was released this morning. EV infrastructure should continue to expand under Trump. New federally backed electric vehicle chargers will continue to appear along U.S. highways no matter which president sits in the Oval Office, according to a report by Automotive News. The Biden administration's plan to line highways across the U.S. with federally funded electric vehicle chargers will remain in place once Donald Trump becomes president next month, experts say. It would take almost an act of God for Trump or Congress to overturn the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, said Lauren McDonald. That's because much of the $5 billion that underpins the initiative has already been doled out to the states. The remainder was pre-approved. Policymakers designed the 5-year program, which started in 2021, to help states create a network of public charging stations in 50-mile intervals along interstates. Now, this is something that's going to make a lot of liberals mad. It's not what it's meant to do. Electric vehicles and electric vehicle chargers will leave a bigger carbon footprint than it'll ever make up in its lifetime. I read something by a guy who's an actual nonprofit scientist that said, if we go full electric and we have the infrastructure in place, we will have the same carbon footprint that we have now with our modern combustible engines. They are not, people misunderstand and misconstrue why we're going wind, solar, and electric. Everybody assumes it's to save the planet, but we've been doing save the planet stuff for 70 years. Since basically the early 1950s, there has always been something going on that's going to destroy the planet. During the Al Gore days, it was the ozone layer. Then it was water treatment plants. Then it was nuclear power. There was just so many things. When a politician opens their mouth and says the word clean energy, they're a lying sack of crap. But the reason why we're going wind, solar, electric cars, hydrogen cars, trying to get into that realm, is the oil companies know that they have a limited supply of petroleum and oil, And if we don't get that started now, and we don't start getting alternative energy sources in place, if we don't have alternative transportation beyond gasoline cars, beyond diesel trucks, we're going to run out of oil really quick. Oil is in everything we have. Your cell phone, all the parts made in this car, the internet, and all the servers across the world. Everything that's not made by a plant fiber or an animal skin is produced basically with oil of some sort. But they know that they have to get these alternative energy sources like solar, like wind, to extend our oil reserves until they can find an alternative to oil. That's the end game. The end game for the world is to try to find an alternative to building all this stuff, to making all this stuff without oil. But to get there is going to take a few hundred years. It's not going to be snap your fingers, wave a wand, and all of a sudden we don't need oil anymore. So they're going to continue to mix concrete and build big, huge wind initiative power sources and solar panels and hydroelectric stuff. And they're going to continue to look at fusion and saltwater fusion. They're going to look at alternative power sources because number one, we need more power. And number two, the oil companies know that they have to find an alternative. And the alternative is going to make them more money than oil does. And they know that. Nobody says that. Because you won't go buy an electric car unless you think you're saving the planet. Because let's face it, I drive an electric car. And it's a big pain in the ass. God's honest truth. Biggest pain in the butt. I'm up in Northern California this week. My range on this electric car got cut by 35% by moving up to Northern California for this week. I was averaging 210 working miles a day, or a charge, down in Southern California. Up here in NorCal, I'm averaging about $1.48. Who would tolerate that? Right? Who would want to tolerate that? Nobody. So that's the concept that we have to understand, is there's no such thing as green. There's such thing as alternative. Now, I'm not saying don't go buy an electric car, because in 30 years, we're going to have no choice. They're going to push for 50% of us to have electric cars for our daily commuters. Diesel trucks and gas cars are not going anywhere. Not my lifetime, not my kids' lifetime, not my grandkids' lifetime. And just to prove to you that politicians and all these groups and lobbyists are dead wrong, banks only care about themselves and their money. They only care about the bottom line and the profit margin. If they were so worried that the oceans were going to rise and we were going to have the Arctic was going to freaking melt completely, then what they would be doing is they would not be giving loans to beachfront property. They would not be giving loans out to build humongous condos in Malibu Beach. They would not be giving out and doling out housing projects on the Florida coast. Banks aren't stupid. They do their homework. They know more about what's going on in the world than any of us do. So just keep that in mind as we go into 2025. Not everything you read on the internet, not everything you see on TV, not everything you see on the internet is the truth. Just look at the motorhome sales ban. That's a complete lie. Until next time, until tomorrow morning, I should say, remember RV stands for toolkit and sense of humor. Have a great Tuesday.